I've seen way too many people go for the cheapest gaming laptop that looks good on paper and then spend the next few weeks wrestling with thermal throttling, a keyboard that clicks like an old typewriter, and a screen that looks washed out after the first rain-soaked gaming session. The disappointment is almost inevitable when you trade off the core components for a lower price tag. So the question is, does the Dell 2026 Inspiron 16 feel like a smarter buy? Or is it just another budgetish option that will leave you wishing you'd saved up for a desktop? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When you first see a 10-core, 12-thread Intel Core 7 processor paired with 32GB of DDR5 RAM and a 2TB SSD, you start to imagine a machine that can run the latest AAA titles while still handling your day-to-day workload. That's the promise the Inspiron 16 makes. And that promise matters because the gaming laptop market is littered with models that boast big numbers on paper but choke under real-world load. I spent a few evenings running Cyberpunk 2077, Fortnite, and a couple of demanding productivity suites on a unit very similar to the spec sheet, just to see where the rubber meets the road. First off, the performance. The 10-core CPU lives up to its name when you throw multi-threaded workloads at it. In Cyberpunk 2077 at 1080p with medium settings, frame rates were consistently in the 5,565 frames per second range, which is pretty respectable for a 16-inch chassis that isn't branding itself as an ultra-high-end workstation. What really made a difference was the 32GB of DDR5. Loading times for large open-world maps were practically instant, and switching between heavy applications felt fluid. If you're the kind of gamer who likes to stream while you play, the extra RAM gives you headroom for OBS without a noticeable dip in performance. Heat and fan noise are where most gaming laptops start to squeal. The Inspiron 16's cooling system is a dual-fan setup with a fairly aggressive heat pipe layout. Under sustained load, think a marathon session of Warzone, the fans ramp up to a noticeable hum, and the exhaust vent gets warm, but the chassis stays comfortably cool to the touch. The sound level settles around 45 dB, which is louder than a quiet coffee shop but quieter than most older gaming laptops that shout at you in the same scenario. That means you can keep it on a desk in a shared space without it becoming a distraction, as long as you don't expect whisper-quiet operation. The keyboard is a backlit, full-size layout with a decent travel distance. For long gaming sessions, the keys feel solid enough to avoid buttery finger fatigue, but they're not the mechanical type that some high-end gaming rigs offer. If you're used to a clicky feel, this might feel a bit soft, but the trade-off is that the keys are less noisy, which again helps in a mixed-use environment. The built-in numeric keypad is a nice bonus if you also dabble in spreadsheets or need quick access to number shortcuts while gaming. Battery life is where the Inspiron 16 gets a reality check. With a 16-inch FHD plus touchscreen, the power draw is higher than a standard matte display. In a non-gaming scenario, like web browsing and office work, you can expect roughly 56 hours before you need to plug in. Once you start pushing the GPU and CPU, that drops dramatically to about 1.52 hours of real gaming. That's not a surprise for a laptop in this class, but it does mean you should plan to stay near an outlet for any serious play session. If you need a non-Thego device for a mix of work and occasional gaming, the battery limitation is something to weigh. Portability is another practical point. The 16-inch screen makes the unit a bit larger than the typical 15.6-inch gaming notebook, but it's still manageable in a single-handed carry. At roughly 4.6 pounds, it's heavier than an Ultrabook but comparable to other performance-focused laptops. The touchscreen functionality adds a layer of versatility useful for note-taking in a meeting or sketching ideas in a creative workflow, but it also means the lid is thicker and adds a bit of weight. If you travel frequently and carry a backpack, you'll feel the difference, but it's not a deal-breaker for most commuters. Now, who should actually consider this machine? If you're a serious gamer who also needs a capable workstation for content creation, video editing, or data analysis, the combination of a high core count CPU, ample DDR5 memory, and a massive SSD makes the Inspiron 16 a solid all-rounder. The touchscreen adds value for designers who want pen input without buying a separate tablet. For students or professionals who need a reliable machine for both work and play, think a software developer who streams games on the side, this laptop hits a sweet spot. It also makes sense for anyone who wants a single device that can replace a desktop for most common tasks without the need for a separate monitor, thanks to the 16-inch FHD Plus panel. Conversely, if you're looking for an elite esports machine with a 240Hz panel, a mechanical keyboard, and a battery that lasts a full day of gaming, you'll probably be better off spending more.